Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dr. Willie Sanders Jr. I'm going to be your guide, taking you through this topic of SOC fundamentals. This presentation was adopted, or rather adapted, from the Let's Defend platform's SOC Analyst Pathway. This is actually the first module within the SOC Analyst Pathway, and it's going to go through again the fundamentals of what it means to be a SOC analyst. As we go through this, you're going to learn a couple of things. You're going to learn the structure of a SOC, the core operations of a SOC or a Security Operations Center, if for those who aren't familiar with what a SOC is. You also learn about some of the core tools and products that SOC analysts use, how a SOC analyst should use their tools, and then common mistakes that are made by a SOC analyst. Now, before we get into it, again, just want to give a huge shout out to Let's Defend. They're I consider them, and a lot of people consider them, the premier blue team training platform. Their simulations are on point. If you work your way through their platform, you will definitely gain the skills needed to hit the ground running in employment. And it's one of the reasons why I chose to adapt their training into these presentations. But in order to get full advantage of the things I'm going to be talking about today, I highly encourage you to go and sign up for a free account on the Let's Defend platform. Their URL is letsdefend.io. You can sign up for a free account. You can get access to the modules that align to this presentation, but not just this one. They have several free modules that you can take within their SOC Analyst Pathway that'll help you start to develop your skills. And then if you, after trying them out for a little bit, feel like you want to move forward with getting their paid option, it's really affordable. And definitely if you're a student and you have a .edu email address from maybe your university, your college or university, you can register and you can even get a student discount when going through their platform. But I highly encourage you, if this is something that you want to do, if you want to get into cybersecurity, and specifically if you want to be a SOC analyst, which is a great entry point into cybersecurity, by the way, I highly encourage you, register for the Let's Defend platform. Follow along with me in my videos where I go through some of the concepts that they discuss, and then practice in their simulated environment, and you'll really develop some strong hands-on skills that'll make that difference when you're heading into employment. And not just for those new to the field, but even for those who are in the field and looking to up their game a little bit. This could be a good way for you to practice and develop your skills up to the next level. The reason that I say that is because it takes the Let's Defend platform takes a hands-on approach to learning. So while you're going through our discussions here and through the actual training platform, you're going to get a better understanding of the tools and techniques that a SOC analyst needs. So definitely get on the Let's Defend platform so you can fully take advantage of this. You also want to be a good note taker, right? So as you're going through this, there's going to be a lot of content that's going to be introduced, maybe new terminology, maybe new tools that you never heard of. So take notes and then apply those as you're working your way through the course. As I mentioned before, if your goal is to be like a SOC analyst, then definitely you're going to want to double down on your efforts when it comes to studying. Again, if you're in the field already, though, there's a lot of best practices that the training covers, so you can avoid, if you pick up on those best practices through the training, you can avoid making common mistakes that other SOC analysts might have to suffer through and learn the hard way. Learn from others. Don't repeat their mistakes. Learn what the best practices are and apply them so that you can be better at your job. There's actually a section in the Let's Defend platform that they call quick tips. So if you don't want to fully go through all of the training, because again, maybe you do this for a living already and you just want to get to that core information that's going to help you upskill, then just jump to the section labeled Quick Tips, and it'll give you some examples of common mistakes that you can look out for and avoid. And then overall, especially for my new folks, you want to make sure that if you want to get the best bang for your buck, you're going to complete the training. Go through all of the modules, take good notes, practice in their simulation environment so you can get that hands-on experience. And when you come out of the other side of that, you'll be ready again to hit the ground running. All right, so let's get into it. What is a SOC? So a SOC is a security operations center. I kind of like to think of it like the help desk of the cybersecurity department. Within an organization, it's typically going to be like a facility where all of the information from all of the different security tools and even some of the network monitoring tools that we have deployed in our environments, all of that data gets pulled into the SOC. And when it gets pulled in, there are analysts there who are able to go through it to do things like detecting and analyzing and then eventually responding to anything that they deem to be a cybersecurity incident. So the SOC itself, like I said, is a facility, but it's not just a facility. It's the facility, it's the technology, it's the people, it's the investigative processes. All those things combined together really give you what the Security Operations Center is about. This isn't a model that's unique to security. We see this model played out in other places. I mentioned I kind of think of a SOC as like the help desk of cybersecurity, because in a similar way that a help desk pulls in all the information needed to provide troubleshooting for your end users, the SOC does that as well. We also have NOCs that do that for network operations. So again, the concept of having like this unified team or unified facility or department within your organization to handle a very specialized set of work isn't something new. But with the SOC, again, your specialty is the detection, analysis, and response to security-related incidents. There's a couple different models for SOC. You can have an in-house SOC. This is kind of like the one I just described, where you have an organization that is actually, a team rather, that's actually a part of your organization. They have a site in the building, in your on-prem environment, and they're providing that SOC analysis support directly for their end users and their IT environment. That same concept can be made virtual. Only difference here is that you won't have a physical facility. Instead, maybe your SOC analysts are all working remotely, and that data that that's being captured is being captured on servers, maybe in the cloud, maybe even on-prem, and then you have your analysts connecting into that data source in order to get the threat data that they need in order to investigate. So that's another implementation, a little bit less expensive. You can think of this, one of the aspects of, which model does my organization go with is going to be a cost thing. So it costs more to have an in-house SOC, but on the flip side of that, it centralizes things. I can go downstairs to the SOC, or I have my team there kind of working together in the building, and that's a different type of energy than when you have people working remotely, scattered all over the place. It makes it a little bit harder to for them to work together to collaborate. So, but that might be the model that works for your organization. So either one could work, but it just depends on how your org wants to deploy. You also have what they call co-managed SOCs. So with a co-managed SOC, you're going to have internal team, that whether they be on-prem or virtual, but then you're also going to have your organization is also going to be leveraging the services of a managed security service provider, or MSSP. That's essentially a company that does security work for another company. So they're going to have a contract with some third party that's going to basically expand their SOC team, and maybe even add in some more expertise. So some organizations might go this route if maybe their SOC analysts are only at a certain level, and they want an escalation point. They want a group of SOC analysts that they can send more difficult incidents up to by creating a contractual agreement with an MSSP. Now you have an escalation point, somebody to hand off the harder tasks to. So that might be a way that your organization implements. And then in some bigger institutions, think like telecom companies, defense agencies, even like maybe some larger universities, that have multiple campuses, they may take the approach of having a command SOC where they have one big central SOC that is supporting multiple smaller SOCs around a region or whatever their area of coverage is, and those smaller SOCs will handle the incident response and all of the detection and analysis for their particular site or maybe their particular region, but then they'll have again an escalation point up to the command center where bigger, more maybe wide scale problems can be escalated for further investigation. I mentioned before, the SOC isn't just about facilities. People, processes, and technology also are key elements of making a building out a good SOC or having an effective SOC. So it's important when on the people side that you have the right type of qualifications within your personnel. And so as you train to be a SOC analyst, this is something that you want to keep in mind, because you want to get out ahead of that. You want to start to develop those key skills that make a SOC analyst a great SOC analyst. Some of those things, you want to be highly trained in your core technologies. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But you also want to be adaptable. You want to be someone who's has that always learning mindset, so that you can adapt to the ever-changing threat landscape and learn about new attacks, have a willingness to do research, because you have to kind of stay on top of your game in order to be a really good SOC analyst, because new attacks come out every day. So besides knowing how to find the alerts and work through attack scenarios, you have to continue to study so that you can stay up to date on the latest trends in cyber. You'll also want to have within your SOC very standardized processes, because standardization is going to help your SOC run more efficiently. These standardizations don't have to, your organizations are not going to come up with these on their own. Instead, they're going to leverage industry-wide kind of best practices and frameworks. Some popular ones are NIST, the PCIs, the payment card industry, HIPAA. So these are all either laws in the United States, or they're frameworks. They have frameworks that have been established that are being used by hundreds of thousands of organizations around the world. So they're field tested. They work. We can take those standards and just apply those best practices to our SOC environments to make sure that we're addressing our incident response in a uniform way. Some of the technology solutions that you might see in a SOC and how they might differ depending on what task you're trying to accomplish. There's going to be a lot of different products out there for SOC analysts to use. Some of them will be centered around testing, like penetration testing. Some of them are detection tools. Some of them are preventative tools. And then some tools are for analysis. In order to choose, if they're involved in this process, in order to choose the right tech for your environment, you got to do a little bit of market research, because like I said, there's a lot of products out there, but not every product will fit into your budget, and not every product will be the right solution for your organization. So those are things that need to be accounted for. These are some considerations for building out a SOC. I mentioned before, you're going to think about alignment with security requirements and security standards and frameworks like NIST, PCI, and HIPAA. You're also, again, going to make sure you're choosing the right tools to deploy into your environment based on your budget, based on the tools fit into your SOC, right? Might be the best tool on the market, might even be at a good price, but if it doesn't provide you with the insight and support that you need in order for your environment to stay up to date, stay safe, then that might not be the best tool for you. You might need to go with a tool that might not be the market leader, but it gives you the right feature set for what you need to do in your SOC environment. So let's talk more about the analyst side. So the SOC analyst is just one of many roles within a SOC. They're a key role, but there's one of many. You can think of them as like the watchers on the wall. They're that first line of defense. So the SOC analyst, they're going to they're going to initiate any of the investigations that are happening in your environment, and they're going to be the first responders, if you will, to any threats to the systems or services that are running in your environment. If the situation calls for it, though, the buck doesn't have to stop with them. They can actually escalate up to other either higher level roles within their SOC environment, or again, if you're working with a managed security service provider, they can escalate up to that third party provider. Some of the advantages of being a SOC analyst, well, one of the big ones is that there are so many different attack techniques and attack vectors out there that working in a SOC analyst role is going to give you the opportunity to learn more and more about the actions of cyber criminals and how to counteract them. So this is one of the reasons I think that a SOC analyst role is like a really good entry point into cybersecurity, because again, you're like boots on the ground. You're getting that firsthand experience with seeing these types of attacks and how to deal with them. On top of that, in that SOC analyst role, if you're the type of person who gets bored, it's probably not going to feel as boring as some other technical jobs might. You're using the same tools, like maybe the same operating systems, the same security products, but every day is a new event, right? There's going to be different types of attacks that you're dealing with. You might even get some really unusual ones that you've never seen before that can take you down a rabbit hole of investigating to try to figure it out to resolve the issue. But one thing you could say is that your day to day isn't going to be the same thing from day to day. You're going to have some variety in the actual investigations that you're taking on. So if that's something that is interesting to you, having, not only the ability to gain a lot of knowledge, probably in even a short period of time, depending on how big of an environment that you're helping to support and protect. You'll be able to learn a lot, but you'll also be able to have like something different happening every day to keep you going. What does a day in a life look like for a SOC analyst? Well, typically throughout the day, a SOC analyst is going to be inside of their tools. One of the main ones is something called a SIM. We'll talk about what that is in a second, but they're going to be in that SIM reviewing alerts and then sorting them. Okay, which ones are false alarms? Which ones are actual real alarms? False positives, or like an actual real event. To help figure out that part, to come to that conclusion of this is a real thing that I need to chase down and figure out. There are going to be other tools besides the SIM that are going to be leveraged. Things like endpoint detection and response systems, or we call them EDRs for short, log management systems, and then security orchestration, automation, and response, or SOAR systems. And even though we have all these systems, right, if you want to be a successful SOC analyst, you don't want to, or successful in anything in technology for that matter, you don't want to become over dependent on your tools, right? The tool is just that. It's a tool to help you, the skilled individual, do your work. So the same way, like, you know, an unskilled carpenter can use a hammer, but then a skilled carpenter can use a hammer, same hammer, but in different hands, you get different results. Your tools work like that within your cyber environment as well, in your SOC. But these things are just tools. You still, as the individual, need to have those well-developed skills and abilities to be able to effectively use your tools. Some of those skills and abilities you're going to need to have a strong understanding of operating systems and how they function, because without that, you won't be able to tell what's normal versus what's abnormal. That abnormal behavior is going to be some of your indications that something is going wrong on your systems. So you need to be able to recognize that. But if you don't know how an operating system functions on a normal basis, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to identify when something out of the ordinary is occurring. Same thing's true of networks, right? A lot of the attacks that try to get try to affect our networks, our enterprises, come from the outside. They come from networks or through network communications. So you need to have a strong understanding of network addressing, network communication protocols, so that, again, same thing, you can be able to identify normal from abnormal. And then lastly, malware analysis, being able to understand how different malicious software functions and what it does, what files it tries to alter, what network services it tries to shut down. Having an understanding of how that malware functions can help you combat it. Mentioned a couple of tools in that you need to be aware of as the SOC analyst. The first one I mentioned was a SIEM. SIEM, SIEM, stands for Security, Information, and Event Management. This is basically a software solution that combines pulls in different security information, also provides real-time logging for your events, and log aggregation, meaning it pulls in logs from a bunch of different sources into a single pane of glass. That's a big, that process of centralization is really important for a SOC, because there's, again, so many different tools that you'll need to utilize in order to do your day-to-day, that if you had to jump from this tool to that tool to that tool to that tool, you might overlook something. And also, viewing the output of those tools from several different sources makes it harder to find trends. So by utilizing a tool like a SIEM, you can pull in all that data into one place and then analyze it in a way where you can find those trends or those anomalies that might be the indicators something is going wrong or something suspicious on your network. Another thing that a SIEM provides is alerting. That's going to be huge, because part of your day-to-day as a SOC analyst is to check on those alerts to see which ones are real and which ones were false alarms. Some popular SIEM tools out there on the market: you got IBM QRadar, you got ArcSight, FortSIEM, and Splunk, but there's other ones as well. As I mentioned before, the SIEM tool, even though it has a bunch of other features, most of these SIEM tools on the market have a ton of other features, because the SOC analyst isn't the only one who's using them. So it has capabilities that other SOC team members might need to use, or even people outside of the SOC might leverage those other features. But from a SOC analyst perspective, the main feature rather that you'll be leveraging is the alerting feature. The alerts are going to be generated from the data that's passing through the filters that have been created in the SIEM tool. Depending on your environment, your analyst team might be the ones to create those filters. In other environments, someone else is responsible for actually setting up and creating the filters. But the SOC analyst is the one who's responding to the alerts that those filters generate. And some of the alerts will be real. and there'll be real threats you need to track down and chase down and investigate. Other ones will be false alarms. The initiation of your interaction with those alerts starts with the making of that decision. Another tool that we mentioned, another category of tools we mentioned is log management. Log management tools are going to be used to do log analysis. Similar to the SIM, you kind of think of it as like a step down from the SIM. The log management tools also pull in log files from a variety of different sources. A log being essentially a date and timestamp record of everything that occurred on a particular system. So operating systems, for example, like Windows and Linux, when something occurs in an operating system, somebody logs in, or a software application does something, all those different things, all those different activities, events generate these text-based logs that can then be examined in the event that something goes wrong. From the IT perspective, we use them a lot for, like, error detection, for troubleshooting. But that same log data is a rich source of information when it comes to doing a security investigation. So being able to harvest those logs, pull them into a single tool so that they can be analyzed and aggregated, becomes increasingly important. And the log management system allows us to do that. It allows us to pull all those logs into a central location or central application so that they can be examined. Firewall logs, proxy servers, web logs, OS logs, list goes on and on. Pretty much every electronic system creates a series of logs. So that's a lot of data that we can take advantage of when we're doing our analysis. So I mentioned some of this before. Purpose of the log management. Log management is going to help us to find the details of the different activities or events that have occurred. Specifically, communications from one address, like maybe an IP address, to another address, from one protocol to another protocol. The log management tool will let us be able to view that, and then we can take that information, combine it with the data that we pull from other systems, other tools like the SIM, and then that'll give us a better overall picture of, who's accessing our networking systems and whether they're doing it in an authorized or unauthorized manner. Next tool that we mentioned is EDR. EDR stands for Endpoint Detection Response. EDRs are focused on endpoints, an endpoint being like a server, a workstation, a laptop, desktop, but basically the device that a user is connecting to in order to actually do their work. EDR systems, a lot of them work off of maybe they could be agentless, meaning that you don't have to pre-install anything. It's like a web connectivity. That's what it's functioning off of. But a lot of them work on an agent-based implementation, meaning you're going to install a piece of software, a little piece of software called an agent, onto your endpoints. And that agent software is going to, in real time, monitor and collect information from that endpoint based on some rules or automations that you've created. And it's going to send that data back up to some central location, maybe a server, web application, so that it can be analyzed. This is really powerful because a lot of our attacks are targeted at our endpoints. The endpoints are like a really common way for an attacker to get into your overall network. Instead of trying to break right into the network, they'll attack an endpoint like a client system, and they'll use that as a foothold to get into your larger network. So we definitely want to have insight into what's going on our endpoints, and the EDR systems give us that. EDR solutions give us that ability. Some common EDRs are Carbon Black, SentinelOne, FireEye, HX. What do they give us? They're going to give us, again, real-time monitoring of our endpoints, that log collection, the activity, the events, everything that's going on in that endpoint is getting reported back up to our management server or management console. They help with advanced threat detection, so identifying 0 days or advanced persistent threats. Definitely with collecting forensically relevant data, because again, if it's an agent, it's on the system, it has direct access to that data to pull it in. Automated mitigation response, being able to block things in an automated way, removing that human interaction, taking the human bottleneck out of the equation, by allowing the system, once it detects abnormal activity, abnormal actions, actually blocking them instead of just alerting you so that you can check on it. And EDRs also provide some threat hunting capabilities, which are going to be useful for the SOC analysts, but even more so for some of the other roles within the SOC. In particular, they have a role called a threat hunter. So that is a tool that a feature that they'll be able to leverage. Next, we mentioned a SOAR. A SOAR is a security orchestration, automation, and response system. When I think of a SOAR, I think of an orchestra, hence the word orchestration. Think of how an orchestra is set up. You got all these different groups of instruments. You got your flutes and your violins and your percussion and your cellos, what have you, all these different instruments, and they're all playing different parts. So you would think all these instruments playing different parts should sound like a mess, should be chaos. But there's another important element to an orchestra, and that's the conductor. The conductor's job is to sit at the helm, at the forefront of the orchestra, and to tell these different instruments when to play and how to play, how loud, how soft, things like that. And with the conductor there running a show, now we don't have chaos. We have a symphony, right? We have, beautiful music because everybody's playing their part, working together in harmony. Your source system is the conductor for all of the different types of tools that you have deployed in your environment. So instead of having to access the threat intelligence here, or the endpoint detection there, or the security operations there, or the SIM tool there, the SOAR solution has the ability to integrate with all those tools to make them work together. It hooks into all of them, pulls in their data, and gives you one centralized point to manage, or one centralized system to manage all of them through, or access all of their data through. Some popular SOARs: Splunk has theirs, IBM Resilient, LogSign, and Demisto. Benefits of the SOAR: time savings. In addition to pulling everything together through centralization, which is another benefit, you also can do automations through workflows. You can, again, remove some of the mundane task out of the way so that humans don't have to do it, because if humans are doing these repetitive tasks, there's the potential that they might forget to do something, or do something slightly different this time than they did the last time, and then that could cause issues. Through automation, you get uniformity, and you save time, because now that's going to free your SOC analysts up from having to do those mundane tasks, and free them up to do more interesting, more maybe challenging tasks that need to be accomplished. So we're going to save time. We're going to centralize things. Also, as part of that centralization process, you're going to create things called playbooks. Playbooks are the actual workflows that your SOAR is going to go through in order to make things happen. When certain SIM alerts come in, if you have your pre-made playbook already set up with automations, that alert can trigger a playbook to have certain actions occur to help help with your investigation, and help with your mitigation of that potential event. So that's the automated side of the use of the playbook. Another purpose of the playbook could just be to act as a SOP. a standard operating procedure, essentially like a checklist of things you need to do in the event that a certain type of event occurs. And that can come in handy if you have a more novice analyst on the team, because now they don't let's say they don't remember all of the steps, or they don't know all the steps that need to be taken in order to deal with a certain type of incident. You don't have to, pull one of your more senior analysts off to deal with that. Nope. There's a playbook that has step-by-step instructions on what to do and how to go about performing that investigation. And the newer analysts can just follow that. Even if it's unautomated, they can just follow that process. And if they follow it to the T, they should end up with the same type of results as the senior analyst would have. We mentioned threat intelligence. So threat intelligence, or sometimes you'll hear it called open source threat intelligence. Not all threat intelligence is open source, but open source is a good source of threat intelligence. But anyway, threat intelligence feeds. Excuse me. These are going to be really useful for your SOC team, because this is where they're going to go to get the latest and greatest information concerning the types of cyber threats that they're going to be countering. Threat feeds are going to give information like indicators of compromise. They're going to help educate your team or educate you or your team on the specific types of threats that are out there, what IP addresses they're coming from, the domain names that might be flagged as being malicious, different files, URLs, all of the like, all these different signs. IOCs are signs. You think about symptoms that show that there's potentially a cyber incident occurring in your environment. So the threat intelligence feeds are going to tell us what those are. They're also going to give us insight into the tactics, techniques, and procedures that attackers are currently using. And then lastly, they're going to give us information about threat actors, the people who are actually performing these malicious activities. Sometimes they're like groups who will take credit for these things. So you want to know who those groups are or individuals are, because that'll help you clue into their motivations and might even help you clue in on what type of targets they want to go after. Some threat feeds some examples of threat feeds that you can check out: Virus Total, that's a free one; Cisco Talos, and Level Blue Labs, which is formerly Alien Vault. Lastly, we have some common mistakes that analysts make. Just like any other human being, an analyst isn't always going to get it right. They might make some mistakes, but by learning from others' mistakes, we can hopefully avoid making those mistakes ourselves. So some of the things that some of the mistakes that SOC analysts make are over-reliance on Virus Total or other tools in general. Virus Total specifically, because that's a really popular tool that SOC analysts are going to use in order to determine if like an IP address or a URL is malicious. You can literally just plug in that IP, that URL, or attach that file and see the reputation of that domain or that IP. But you don't want that to be your only thing that you use to make your determination of whether or not something is malicious or not, because as attackers do, some of them have come up with techniques to be able to avoid the detection of tools like Virus Total. So if you're relying 100% on Virus Total to tell you whether or not something's malicious or not, then you might fall into this situation where you submit it for a scan, it comes back clean, but then later on you find out it was actually malicious. So don't over rely on your tools, rely more on your skills, because your tools are just that. They're tools that your skilled hands are what really make the tools work. Kind of in the same vein, a big mistake that analysts make is hastily analyzing malware when they put it into a sandboxed environment. So different ways of sandboxing. Some sandboxes are in the cloud. Some sandboxes are like virtual machines running on analyst workstation. But either way, the goal of that sandbox is to isolate the malware that you want to investigate, so you can explode it and then see what's going on, see how it's working, and you can really see if this thing, this attachment, whatever it is, was malicious. The problem with that is sometimes analysts will put something into the sandbox environment to detonate it, and then it doesn't happen, and they watch it for like 2 minutes and nothing happens, so they assume that it's not malicious. Well, some malware takes longer in order to activate, or there's some other trigger that activates it that's not going to trigger within 2 minutes, the 2 minutes you watched it. So by not being in such a rush, you might actually be able to give that malware some time to do its thing so that you can see what's going on and you can properly analyze it. Another mistake, inadequate log analysis. Let's say you detect a potential incident on a affecting a specific device or IP address or system, what have you, and that becomes the end of your investigation. Oh, it happened to this one computer. But what if that same malware or same whatever it is, the same attack is happening to other things on your in your environment? You just didn't get the alerts for them. You want to, once you identify a system that's affected, you want to also analyze the rest of your logs to see what the actual scope of that event is. Like, how widespread is it, and is it affecting other systems that maybe I didn't get the alert on? And then lastly, back to the virus total. Another mistake analysts might make is overlooking the dates on virus total. Like other types of web-based software, virus total can cache its results. So you go search something, and it'll cache, it'll like basically save, for lack of a better term, the results from the last time you looked it up. Could be that when you looked up that URL before in virus total, it was totally clean, but 2 months later it's been compromised and now it has a poor reputation. But if you're looking at the cached results, it still looks like it's clean to you, and you might be inclined to give it a pass, give that URL or give that file a pass, thinking it's still clean because you're looking at old results. Make sure that you're updating those results so that you can make an accurate decision. And with that, we've completed the SOC Fundamentals pathway. Again, not SOC Fundamentals module. Again, make sure that if you want to get the credit towards this, because there is a credential that Let's Defend provides you with. If you finish all the modules, you get their certificate of completion for completing the SOC Analyst Pathway. So to make sure that you get that credit, go through your modules in your Let's Defend account, and then complete the activities that are required, and then you'll get your little badge. It'll look, I have it up on my system. It'll look a little something like this. So you have SOC Fundamentals completed. So that's what we want to see. We want to get that pathway completed so that you can get all the benefits that you possibly could out of this training, and have something to show for it, for like your resume when you're out there job hunting. All right, see you in the next video.